So now that we've talked a little bit about the foundation, the walls, and the ceiling of what establishes vulnerability and trust in a group, and everybody's beginning to sort of feel trust with one another, now what? Now we need to start having those vulnerable conversations. Where does that start?
That's a good question. So aside from the person who's the chronic oversharer, because we have those sometimes, and they don't really need the safe house to share.
Right.
But most people do. And at the same time, most people need someone to lead the way. So, and actually it sort of goes hand in hand with building the safe house. And what I mean by that is I believe that the leader needs to set the stage in what vulnerability can look like in your group. And I've seen it over and over and over again that when whoever's leading a group starts in the very first week, steps out of their comfort zone a little bit and shares something vulnerable that's personal to them, that it really does set the stage, and it allows everybody to feel like the safe house is already in place.
Right.
And so when the leader leads the way in that, then most everybody else follows pretty easily, I've seen. There might still be some work that needs to be done, but sometimes that comes over a few weeks of building relationships and getting to know each other and stuff like that. But I think one of the key factors in having vulnerability in your group is when the leader really sets the pace of what that looks like from the beginning, right away. Right. Share something vulnerable and people will follow. Absolutely.
And kind of sets the stage for it is a safe space. They're really setting that. Now you said the overshare, and that's always a fear for anybody who leads a group, to have the oversharing person in the group, the person who sometimes doesn't need the opportunity to have the foundation set. They're willing to share right up front. But how can we kind of set some guardrails around our conversation as we begin to see the overshare emerge, and how can we keep that trajectory moving forward in our conversations?
You know, I think there's a couple things you can do. One is from the very beginning of the group when you're kind of talking through ground rules, and maybe even as you're talking about the safe house, the listening piece of it, you can kind of tell your group like, hey, we're all here to share. And so we want to be able to hear from everybody,
right.
And sort of maybe give some of those indirect hints to the oversharer. And oftentimes they'll pick it up there like, okay, we're here to listen to everybody, not just me.
Right.
But then as the group goes and as someone continues to overshare, I've done a couple of things. One is I will intentionally ask or call on quieter person. So I'll say, Tiffany, tell us what you think about this.
Yeah.
And so I'll direct it towards some of the other people that aren't oversharing, and sometimes the oversharer will either get the hint or just because I've called on someone else, they don't really get an opportunity to share that much.
Sure.
And then very rarely will I ever have to pull the oversharer aside outside of the group privately and just say, man, I love what you have to share, and I love how open and vulnerable you are. And at the same time, there's lots of people in our group who need to share as well. And so I need to ask you to try to cut some of what you're saying down a little bit, just to give some space for some other people. And 9 times out of 10, they understand and they're cool with it, and they go with it, and it doesn't become a problem. So that's some of the ways I've worked with oversharers before.
That's wonderful. That's awesome. It can be really challenging to step into some vulnerable conversations. And so as you begin to watch trust grow and vulnerability, and as you begin to step into some of these conversations with one another within your group, we really want to encourage you that some of these spaces can get kind of heavy sometimes, and some of the things that can be shared oftentimes we can address by listening and supporting. But sometimes those conversations are going to start to feel like the person might need more help than what I can offer them. And so Chris and I really want to encourage you that when you get to that moment where you realize the individual in my group might need a little bit more help than what I'm qualified to give them, I want you to reach out, and I encourage you to do that. We have many resources we can offer to support the people in your group who might need more help than you can offer them. But we also want you to know that you're not alone, that we're here to support you as the leaders as you step into these spaces with your groups. We want these conversations to go deeper. We really want people to be able to open up, to feel like they can trust those in their group, and to begin receiving the healing the Holy Spirit really desires to bring in some of the spaces that we struggle in. So I encourage you to reach out to us. Thank you so much for all the work that you are doing, for the fantastic leadership that you have had the entire 2020 year. You guys are absolutely resilient, and we're very thankful for you. Thank you guys so much.